We're okay. Pee your pants?
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
So Roland Emmerich, the director behind the Independence Day movies, recently opened up about the possibility of Independence Day 3 ever happening, especially with Will Smith back in the mix. And honestly, it's a topic that's kind of fun to chew on because the original Independence Day from 1996 was such a gigantic hit. It had everything. Will Smith in peak blockbuster mode as Captain Stephen Hiller, Jeff Goldblum doing his quirky genius thing, and that unforgettable moment when the aliens just blew the White House to bits. It was one of those disaster movies that became an instant classic, partly because it was so over the top, and partly because it had that perfect blend of humor, tension, and spectacle. Then, fast forward to 2016, and Emmerich tried to keep the franchise alive with Independence Day Resurgence. It was supposed to show the aftermath, picking up 20 years after Earth's big win. The problem? Will Smith didn't return. Apparently, he dropped out just a couple of weeks before they were going to start shooting. So instead, they killed off his character off-screen, which kind of felt like a gut punch to fans who loved seeing him lead the charge. Emmerich himself addressed the whole idea of revisiting the franchise with Smith in a recent interview with The Playlist. When they asked if he might team up with Will again for a third movie, he kind of shut it down. Not because he wouldn't love to, but more because Smith's character died in Resurgence, and on top of that, Disney now holds the cards after buying Fox. Emmerich basically said, Will's character died in number 2, but also, Disney now has the decision to make it, which is even worse, because they never ever did my deal. So, it doesn't sound like there's much hope right now. And honestly, when you look back at Resurgence, you can kind of see why the franchise stalled. Even though it had Jeff Goldblum back and a bunch of flashy effects, it just didn't have the same magic. Critics really weren't impressed. It's sitting at only 29% on Rotten Tomatoes, with the audience score only slightly better at 30%. Compared to the original's healthier scores in the high 60s and 70s, that's rough. The sequel tried to up the stakes by showing an even bigger alien threat and hinting at intergalactic alliances, but it fell flat partly because it didn't give us characters we could really root for. It doubled down on big explosions without giving enough heart. Even so, Resurgence wasn't a total disaster money-wise. It made close to $390 million worldwide. But that was still less than half of what the original raked in, which was a staggering $817 million. So naturally, that made everyone a bit wary about whether a third movie could ever justify the investment. Interestingly, Emmerich did have grand plans for Independence Day 3. The sequel had left the door wide open by introducing the idea of Earth teaming up with other alien species to take the fight to the Harvester's own turf. The movie ended with this almost playful tease that humanity was gearing up to take the battle off-planet, and you could see the outlines of a whole new space saga forming. Emmerich's vision was reportedly for the third film to pick up a year or two after Resurgence, keeping most of that cast intact, including characters like Jake Morrison, played by Liam Hemsworth, Dylan Hiller, Jesse Usher stepping in as Will Smith's on-screen son, Patricia Whitmore, Maika Monroe, and of course Jeff Goldblum's David Levinson. The idea was to really lean into the sci-fi side of things by exploring new alien worlds, introducing bizarre creatures, and basically going full interstellar war mode. But because it's been so long and there's been so little progress, those plans would probably have to be totally reworked now. Plus, after Resurgence got panned, the studio would have to think carefully about whether bringing back the same characters and storylines would be a smart move or just dragging out something audiences weren't excited about anymore. That said, the idea of an Independence Day 3 isn't entirely dead. Emmerich still seems pretty passionate about it. In fact, he's floated the idea of making the third installment specifically for Disney+. Given how streaming services are hungry for recognizable IPs to keep subscribers hooked, it's actually not the worst plan. Disney's been pretty aggressive about mining the Fox catalog since they bought it in 2019, so the chance of reviving Independence Day on their platform feels more realistic than another giant theatrical release. Plus, with streaming, there's more freedom to try out creative ideas without worrying as much about box office numbers. And here's where it gets kind of fun to speculate. If Disney does decide to greenlight Independence Day 3, they could easily take it as a chance to supercharge the cast with fresh star power. Imagine someone like Tom Holland jumping in. He's already got that world-weary yet hopeful hero energy from Spider-Man. Or if they wanted to build a bridge to the legacy of Will Smith's character, they could cast Jaden Smith in some capacity, maybe as another pilot eager to follow in the footsteps of Dylan Hiller. Willow Smith could even step into the fray in some kind of scientist or strategist role. It's not like sci-fi franchises haven't played around with sibling teams before, and it would be a neat way to nod to the original while still building something new. Adding a new generation of popular faces could not only draw in younger viewers, but also breathe new life into a franchise that, let's be honest, kind of needs it. And because the plot had already set up Earth teeming with a coalition of alien races, they could go wild with casting different big names as alien leaders or freedom fighters. Imagine some new blue or reptilian species led by a familiar face. It would be a fun way to surprise fans. Of course, the question still hangs over all this. Does Independence Day 3 really need to happen? The first film stands so strong on its own that maybe it's okay to let it remain a 90s sci-fi classic without stretching the story too thin. But the flip side is that the groundwork was already laid for a cool cosmic adventure, and with the right writers and directors plus a more emotionally grounded script that avoids the flatness of Resurgence, there's potential for something genuinely epic, especially if they explore more about the Harvester's world, their backstory, and what other civilizations have suffered under their rule. That could give the franchise a whole new layer of depth. Ultimately, it all comes down to whether Disney sees value in reviving it. For now, there's no official word on a release date or even a green light for production. But with Emmerich still championing the idea and streaming platforms hungry for recognizable hits, it wouldn't be surprising if we eventually see another installment pop up on Disney+. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to stay in the loop. And if you want, you can share your thoughts about this video in the comments.